please. Great, thank you. So the school level finance survey. So a little bit of information about this. All LEAs will be receiving a letter from the CDE here shortly, kind of going through what this requirement is, what the requirements are, and the data collection timeline. So since most of you who are doing the SFPPE calculation will most likely also will be doing the SLFS calculation, I thought now would be a good time to just kind of give you kind of an idea of what's happening. So a little bit more about the SLFS. This is something that's been happening nationally for a while. It's been collected, but more on a voluntary basis. So about 18 states provide this information annually to the U.S. Department of Education. It wasn't until May of last year that it was approved that it become mandatory for all states to provide this information. And this information is going to be part of the civil rights data collection that the U.S. Department of Ed takes care of. So in this time, we've kind of have had some conversations with the U.S. Department of Ed on a timeline for California to complete this requirement. So the requirement really started, the mandatory part of the requirement really started with the 21-22 fiscal year using that data. And what California did is we provided the feds with the ESSA PPE information to satisfy the requirement. And we're going to do the same for the 22-23 year. So for this fiscal year that you're completing for the ESSA PPE, that's also satisfying the SLFS. But next year, when you do it for these current year expenditures, there's going to be a little bit more of a calculation that you're going to need to do. And that's kind of what I want to go over today. So Hillary, if you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the, kind of the specific area where the code is kind of laid out regarding the SLFS. There's the Department of Education Organization Act, which I believe kind of began back in the 1970s. And so they've been kind of using this where the Office for Civil Rights can collect this information. And then back in April and May of last year is where they said, go ahead and collect the SLFS as part of that. As part of that collection. If you can go to the next slide, please. So here is the data collection timeline. So 21-22 fiscal year, obviously that collection's already passed and we provided the ESSA PPE. And then for this year, we're also going to use the ESSA PPE. So for the 23-24 year, we are going to use the NCES. We need to provide the information for NCES function 1000, which is the instruction. So NCES is the National Center for Education Statistics. And that they provide the federal accounting school manual, and it's our CSAM, the California School Accounting Manual, is primarily based on this, on the NCES manual. So there are kind of our partners when it comes to accounting issues with how we apply those to schools. And so they have their, as how SACS is laid out, there's a fund code, a function, a resource. The NCES is primarily built the same way, the account code structure. So our agreement with the Department of Ed is that for the 23-24 year, we will collect the instruction data from LEAs. And then in the 24-25 year, we'll need to include 4 functions plus 3 exhibits. And so you can see the different functions there and the different exhibits there that we're going to need to collect. Now I'll say this also, the actual SLFS includes more than what you're seeing here. So, through 24 and 25 and beyond, this is what we are required to provide. The actual SFLS collection, does include almost all of the functions that you see in CSAM. The SLFS has the capability of asking us for that. But right now, Department of Ed is just asking us for these functions and these 3 exhibits. We can go next slide, please. So what do we want to do here? So we're going to have school level expenditures and central level expenditures. The calculation, the expenditures that you're going to include are exactly the same that what you're doing with the SFPPE calculation. Chances are you already have this information anyhow. What are we excluding? Pretty much the only thing you're going to exclude from the SLFS is adult education, because we're only looking at this at a function level. And if you recall from Hillary's presentation with the SFPPE, when you looked at all of the different exclusions, it was excluding certain functions. Well, those functions aren't required in this. So, but we do want to exclude Fund 11. So that's going to be your main exclusion in all of this. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at what the fiscal year 23-24 reporting period will look like. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So we're going to look at the NCES function 1000. So let's crosswalk that to what that looks like in SACS. So for SACS, what you're going to look at is each of these function codes. So function 1000, 1110, 1120, 1130, and 1190. And essentially what we're going to need is just the total of that. Now, this is going to be a little different because SFPPE, we're asking for a per pupil amount. But with the SLFS, we're just asking for the total. That's all it is. So you probably already have that within your spreadsheets. We'll need the total. It'll also be by school level. And if you go to the next slide, please. So this is kind of how the calculation would work. Chances are is most of it, when you're doing your SFPPE, these functions are already going to be included in your school level. However, you may have some central level, function 1000 that are part of your central level calculation, because maybe a teacher isn't just solely going to one school site and is going to multiple school sites. So you'd want to include those into your total. So this is just a slide that's just showing just strictly for NCES function 1000. And if you were to go to the next slide, you're going to see what it would look like if it was just using SACS. So we can kind of see what that is there. If we go to the next slide, please, we're going to see what 24-25 is going to look like and beyond. So just remember, for 23-24, we just need those function 1000 data, and we're going to need it for the fiscal year 22-23, the year we're currently in, 23-24, sorry. So what happens in during the reporting period of 24-25, this is what we're going to need. It's definitely going to be much more information, but I think it's information that everybody has already. It's just being able to group this in a total amount by school. So instruction 1000, which you'll have, then we'll have student support service function 20, NCES function 2100, but you can see what the crosswalk would include for SACS. Then the next slide would show you, get the next slide, please, Hillary. And then you'll see instructional staff support, and then also school administration. So these are going to be the 4 NCES functions that we'll need to get. We go to the next slide, you'll see the exhibits that we'll need. So the exhibits that they're looking for are salaries that are paid just to teachers. So we're going to use, so obviously we would use SACS object code 1100, certificated teacher salaries. And we would use that within all of the NCEES function 1000 areas. And then another one, our next one would be their salaries that are paid to instructional staff or assistants, which would include the 3 SACS functions there. And then finally, the books and periodicals, which would include SACS object codes 4100 and 4200. So what are we going to do? How are we going to collect this? So we don't want to create another application for everybody else to log into. What we would like to do is modify the ESSA-PPE application. And we have some kind of designs that we're looking at right now. Nothing's been finalized, but generally what we're going to do is create just another page that would show your different schools on there, and then an area. So, next year, when you open up the ESSA-PPE application, you should see an SLFS component to it, and you'll see a list of your schools, and then you'll see your different functions there that you'll need to complete. And that, I think it should be as simple as that. I hope that it's nothing too difficult. We also want to be able to have the capability of uploading that data into the application like you can now with the ESSA-PPE. But our technology department is going to have to think that part out. Like I said earlier, we will be sending out a letter to all of the LEAs kind of outlining this requirement and the different timelines and included and excluded expenditures and such. And then also we've created a web page that should be going live hopefully soon. The web page will have this presentation on it. We'll have the crosswalk on it. Just different types of things that should hopefully help for you to make these calculations. And then so here's some of the frequently asked questions that we anticipate we're going to get. So when do you have to meet it for the SLFS requirement for fiscal year 22? So, like we said, for, prior fiscal year reporting 22-23, we are going to use the ESSA-PPE data. And then with fiscal year 23-24 information is when you would need to do your instruction function reporting, and then after that you'll need to include all 4 of the functions that they're requiring plus the 3 exhibits. So I know that this may be new to some of you. I know we've talked about this a little bit through the SACS forum. So if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us at sacsinfo@cde.ca.gov. I do want to try to keep the SLFS questions separate from the ESSA-PPE questions. That's why we just want to throw them all over to SACS-Info. We do have a consultant that will be primarily charged with the SLFS.